The more I actually address my pains and my traumas, the more beautiful my life becomes.
What's the difference between the soul and the spirit? Oh, yeah. I'm here right now with my good friend, Francisco Jara. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, brother. Good to be with you, man.
It's a pleasure. Man, let me actually give you a formal introduction, man. So Francisco Jara is actually the owner of the Mortgage Phoenix Group. He is also a philanthropist, also I would call you a psychologist, man, because a lot of people come to you and just speak their whole mind and soul, and you just give the way that you break information down is incredible. So when people come to you and like, man, this is what I'm going through, you're able to just really confidently just say, hey, this is what I see, this is the path that you should take, and so on and so forth. He's also a philosopher, if you ask me. And you actually bridge philosophy, business, and philanthropy all together and created what we have today, which is Giving Business Soul.
That's right.
And just let's talk about this, right? I really want to unpack, where did it all come from, man? Because you're such an incredible spirit. Like, when did you know that you had it in you to be who you are today?
Wow. Well, thanks, man, for the introduction. That's well said. It is kind of interesting when you try to, bring forward exactly what I do and try to like package it into a little bit of a paragraph there. But man, I guess like what has become apparent to me now here in 2024 is that, I think really what started the journey was sort of the dark night of the soul. Back in 2006, going through the stage 3 cancer, and then going through the multi-million-dollar bankruptcy a year later, and then the divorce. That was really, like, in my estimation, kind of when the journey really began.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because like up until then, I was kind of asleep. You know what I'm saying? I was just kind of like automaton. Like, I want to get to the top. I want to get there as fast as possible. I want to make as much money. Happiness is at the top. And all of a sudden, just life says, and God says, no, that's not the way we're going. We got to take you down into the depths of the underworld. And as I was down there, man, depressed, broken, lost, it's very much like the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about. It's like you're at the top, and all of a sudden you get taken to the bottom. And when I got taken to the bottom, that's when I found the program of spiritual psychology, where I got my master's degree from the University of Santa Monica. And I was already, I would say, a mini scholar at that point. I mean, I was just somebody very devoted to reading and learning and knowledge. But when I started to go into spiritual psychology and found the work of Carl Jung, and really understood like proper frameworks of how to really heal, especially right now, it's sort of in the zeitgeist that everyone's healing and everyone's doing this inner work, but I don't think they have actual proper psychological frameworks to heal properly. And so when I learned that stuff, I became really enamored, because the more I started to heal inside of myself, like my business started to take off again. And as it started to take off, I really did understand that our inner world is really a reflection, or our outer experience is a reflection of the inner world. And I was like, wow, like the more I actually address my pains and my traumas, the more beautiful my life becomes. And so that I'm a person that I think once I see something that works, I just kind of went all in on that. And I just devoted myself to the inner planes of my own consciousness, kept looking for the stuff that irritated me, triggered me, upset me, and I knew that that's where my work was. And as I continued to reconcile those things, everything just started to move.
Wow.
And what happened was that I then started to really look at a lot of wisdom traditions, a lot of the mystical cores of Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, a lot of Egypt. And I saw the common thread. And what has been hidden from our humanity is that there used to be like a universal religion that literally spanned the entire globe. And that religion can be summarized as the Union Mystica, okay? Which it's found in all of our art, it's found in all of our temples. It's this idea that we have both light and dark, both masculine and feminine. And that the game we're playing that nobody told any of us humans is that we're trying to unite the poles in us. We're trying to unite the proton and electron inside of us. We're trying to create the yin and the yang in a harmonious internal existence. And when we are able to achieve that, it's like what happens is that the heart finally fully opens. You know, and when it opens, a higher life starts to self-organize around you. Because the frequency that's in the heart, you know, is actually the geometry that starts to come off of you. That brings in the right relationships, the right events, but no one told us that. You know, it's like, hey, just get on your knees, believe that this person's going to come back and save you. And once I really got to the core of what we were trying to do internally, then, you know, one of the Hermetic principles is that it's the second Hermetic principle, and it's the law of correspondent. We've all heard it. It's like as above, so below, as above, which is now what science has certainly confirmed. And I thought to myself, I said, well, if we're trying to unite the poles, we're trying to unite the masculine and the feminine inside of us, then at some day we're going to wake up enough to go, wow, let's unite the poles outside of us. And those poles for me really is in business and nonprofit. You know, business is masculine, linear, logical about getting things done. Nonprofits or philanthropic organizations are feminine. They want to nurture, take care of the whole, but both of these are wounded, right? And this one is wounded and it just wants more and more and more. It's never satisfied. This one is wounded and it can't quite achieve the beautiful ideology it has because they're working independent. It's like the masculine and feminine are pulling apart. And I thought to myself, well, let's bring them into union. Let's bring them into union within one organizational structure. And then that became the genesis of the Mortgage Phoenix Group. And I thought to myself, but which principle's first? Is it the masculine or is it the feminine? Right? And what is clear now, I mean, in a lot of different philosophical ways you can look at it, but it's the magnetism that's first. That's the feminine pole. It's not electromagnetic, it's magnet electric, right? If you look out into nature, everything comes from the feminine. You don't come into the earth unless you come through that womb. The womb is the portal into creation. I said, okay, well, then the philanthropic sort of seed and heart has to be the genesis of the organization. That love has to be the starting point, the original point. And then let's use the masculine to move that endeavor forward. And so for me, I said, let me build homes for women, you know, and let me use my knowledge of mortgage and the real estate industry to carry that mission forward. And that became the birthing of Giving Business Soul, because I felt like I found a great treasure. And what I mean by that is I was a hungry ghost as an entrepreneur.
Unpack that for me.
A hungry ghost is like you're just craving something, looking for something, more money, more houses, more women, more this, more that. Hungry ghost. Nothing fills the void. And you know, nothing filled it. And when I rearranged the order and said, let me do philanthropy, let me be generous, let me go and be in service, all of a sudden the void started to fill. And I was like, holy shit, this is a treasure. We had it backwards. You know, we had it inverted. And so that became the beginning of Giving Business Soul. And I said, okay, well, let me take other entrepreneurs into their own pain, into their own traumas, to show them how these unconscious tendency keeps self-sabotaging themselves and keeping them in that hungry ghost. And let me introduce them to this philosophy that's now Giving Business Soul.
Wow. Dang, man, that's a lot to unpack. And the way you unpacked it is just like, it's incredible, because when you talk about masculinity and you know, being a female and things like that, and the female energy, it was a point where this world was mother nature and daughter, you know, and then now we're to the point where it's father and son. You know, so I mean, over time, it's always evolving and changing, and I feel like we're going through a deep change right now. You know, we're coming out of the age of Pisces, going into the age of Aquarius, the age of awakening, where we're starting to realize more and more people are awakening. Now, on our journey, and let's unpack this before we even go there, man. Like, why are we even having this conversation? Like, why am I sitting here? Why are you sitting there? And why do you feel that this is the right, the right connection to even have this conversation?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, I just let the flow of life guide things. It's kind of like that law of surrender.
Yeah.
And it's just like there is a universal intelligence at play in our lives.
Right.
And when we start to pay attention to that intelligence and how it flows through us, I just pay attention to it. I feel like I'm a very surrendered man, and so when you called and then I just sort of held it in my consciousness, and then I got the confirmation. I was like, okay, let me reach out, and and I think when you and I met, I know that you've been somebody that's studied this sort of esoteric knowledge, and you've been a seeker of wisdom. And so I said, yeah, let's sit down, let's conversate, and let's see what spirit brings to us.
Well, I'm glad we're here now, man.
Of course,
I'm glad we're here.
man.
So let's go. I'll drop you off. I'm gonna pick you right back up where I dropped you off at. So the thing is that the world is always evolving, it's always changing, and we're going into another change right now. Being that we're coming out of a certain age, going into a new age, where do you see like the old information and the new information merging? Like, how do you merge the two and continue to progress in the new world?
Yeah. Well, I came into a quote recently I think is very apt to answer this question. It says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but it will be those who can't unlearn and relearn again. Right?
Yeah.
What we've been taught over the last couple thousand years has literally been a misguidance. And how can I be so certain? Well, look out into the world. It's certainly, we're in the Holocene extinction. We're documenting the degradation of the ecological system all across the planet. And it's really been because we've been driven by sort of that patriarchal, very masculine oriented. We swung to the other side of the pole. Like to your point, maybe a long time ago, we were very much on that feminine pole. And then we came over here. Everything is about equanimity. Everything is about the balance. And all the symbology all across the world has always sort of referenced that. And when we start to really kind of come to center, and realize that there's been a force that wants to keep us in opposition on different sides of the spectrum.
Right.
And I think that age of Pisces, if you look at the symbology of that, it's two fish being pulled apart.
Yeah.
Well, that essentially really represents what's been happening over the last couple thousand years. It's the age of duality. And the age of duality, in my estimation, was so that we could see, sort of the dark aspect of ourselves and recognize that we have to sort of come into the middle. And so I feel like it's an exciting time to be alive. Emerson says it really beautifully. It's like, if you're going to incarnate at any time in human history, would you not want to incarnate in the time of revolution, when the old and the new stand side by side and admit at being compared?
Wow.
And we're right there, and it's like, who's going to be the way showers of a new philosophy, of a philosophy that takes the whole of our humanity into consideration, that we are souls and bodies. We are spiritual beings having the human experience.
So let me ask you this. What's the difference, in your perspective, what's the difference between the soul and the spirit?
Great question. To me, I believe that when we incarnate, we are given the light of Sophia, the light of the Christic light. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. The soul is our sort of immortal nature. But when we come into the earth, we're given this light. It says, here you go, Francis. This is you're going to be your guiding light, but I'm going to bury it so deep inside of you that you're going to have to take the journey to know thyself, to uncover that spirit. You got to go and find the treasure, and I'm going to hide it in the darkest places. I'm going to hide it deep in your unconscious.
Wow.
And you're going to have to go into there, like the axiom, says, like, know thyself. Right? And so how do you know thyself? Well, we live in a holographic universe. Right? And everything that you are seeing in your you-inverse, universe, you-inverse, is the reflection of what you need to reconcile. So if anything pisses you off, if you judge it as right and wrong, if you can't be neutral in its observation, that's giving you an indication like, hey, you got some stuff to look at.
Right.
And then that starts to give you a passageway inside. And when you do, like how I see it, I see the masculine, feminine, and you have like this wedge in the middle. This is all the trauma, the ego structures, all that. And the more you reconcile it, eventually that masculine and feminine make love. And when that thing makes love, that divine third comes out, that spirit. You know, that becomes the guiding light. That's why in all the Christian iconography, you always see like this halo. I believe that these individuals attained that union mystica that allowed them to be guided by the spirit.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, I like to think that and then that was incredible. Like the way you broke that down and the way you unpacked that. I always used to wonder, like, but where does it come from? How does it enter the body? Do you have the spirit while you're in your mother's womb? And even being in the mother's womb, I feel like that's a life of its own. And when you die out of the womb and you're birthed into the world, like you died out of the womb to be birthed into the world. So when you die from this world, you're birthed into another dimension or into another. You know, I don't know what it is at that point. And the first thing you do when you are born into this world is you take a deep breath, and once that breath is taken, then the soul goes into you, and you know the body is going to go through the things that was put here from other souls, like schooling, like politics and policing, and you know you're going to experience media, you're going to experience heartfelt things and heartbreaks, and then once you wake up consciously, I think that's where you left off in your previous life. Let's say someone died at the age of 9 or 10, and then you see this awoken child at 9 and 10. It's like, how did this person become this? You know, I feel like they left off around that time period, and then kicked in around this time period, you know, once they were reborn and then remembered. I think that's what we're here to do, is remember. And then once we remember, then we have to let and show other people how to remember as well. So, I mean, I want to spend some time unpacking, you know, like your idea of God. You know, because I know that you come from a religious background originally, which was Catholic, correct? Right. And then, you know, you found your ways into different things. You're well studied. So from your studies, you know, and from the way that you articulate what you found, how would you articulate, quote unquote, God? Yeah.
You know, where I am today on that, I mean, it's obviously a question that we've been pondering as humans forever. And, you know, certainly I feel like the individual that I look to emulate is the path of Yeshua, right? Otherwise known as Jesus. Now, I feel that he came onto the planet to demonstrate a type of embodiment, a type of consciousness. And I spent the last about 12 years studying him in his native tongue of Aramaic. And when I study what he came to demonstrate and the teachings, specifically the main book in the altar there is called Pistis Sophia, which means the faith of wisdom, the knowledge of wisdom. So Sophia, the ancients knew as Mother Nature. Okay, so in that book, it's a Gnostic text that where he dies and he literally comes back in his light body. The light body was known as the Merkaba. And he's teaching his disciples for 11 more years in his light body. And he teaches them how to ascend into great heights of consciousness by spiritual practice, by taking care of the body, by healing. He pretty much says, like, you know, none of us get through the earth without having our slice of suffering, right? It's the two things that bind every human is love and suffering. And I think at some point we're going to realize that the great prize is actually in the suffering. Yeah. The more you've suffered, the more opportunity you have for grace, right? When you relate to that pain in a way as a part of your curriculum, and you have a way to bring your own compassion into that, you alchemize it, meaning you change the vibration of that shame into love. Right. And as you do that, you dissolve these memories that stay in consciousness and in your body. And as you dissolve those anchors, you elevate. You elevate. And the entire treatise of that 500-page book can literally be surmised in 8 words. Wake up, clean up, grow up, show up. Okay?
I like that.
That's it. And it's wake up, right? Like we're given birth through the womb, but then we have to wake up into the fact that we're a soul and a body. And then that everything is connected and there's a lot more to this existence than the material plane. That's the wake up. The clean up is when you realize that the prize is in the suffering. Go know thyself. Go clean up the pain of your own life, of the genetic and the lineage, of our humanity. And as you clean those up and you dissolve those memories of lower levels of vibrational consciousness, you grow up. You start to ascend the ladder of consciousness. The wounds become the rungs on the ladder of your own consciousness. And when you grow up enough, you start to show up. What does show up mean? That means that literally you organize your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, your soul body, your spiritual bodies, and they come in an organized structure where you become a direct conduit of divine will on the planet. And you become an unapologetic force for God.
Wow.
Right? And to me, God represents a heavenly source. In Aramaic, they don't say our Father. It says heavenly source. So when you do the Lord's Prayer, it's not a masculine being you're praying to. It's a source. To me, that source is a vibrational source of pure harmonic. And I think what we want to do is align our actions, to that frequency, to that geometry.
Yeah.
And the more that we have our thoughts, our actions, our dreams, and everything in congruency with that heavenly source, the more that our life beautifies,
Yeah, that's crazy how you say that, man. That's crazy. So when we talk about, God and the devil, again, this world has been here for so many, centuries, and so many turnovers and whatnot. And this is just how we identify these entities. Do you think that this is, how can I explain it? So the way I look at it, right, is when I'm gonna get back to that, but I need to unpack this real quick. The way I look at, the all-in-one, the Holy Spirit, the God, is basically when you take everything that we see here and then just bind it all the way back up to one, then that's the oneness.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Yes.
And then when you break it on the floor and just shatter everything, then it creates separation.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it all came from one thing.
Right.
And I think that right now we are so into separation that it fuels us, and we allow it to continue to fuel us. And I don't even believe that most people can understand the world without separation.
Right.
A lot of people want it, but then once we do have it, then it's really nothing to compare it to.
Exactly.
So you don't know that there's an up without a down. You don't know that there's a quote unquote good without a bad. You don't know that there's a heaven without a hell or a God without a devil. So like right now, this is how we define these two entities. Now moving into the future, where do you foresee these two entities, or how do you perceive these two entities being defined? Do you think it's still going to stick to the God and devil, or do you think it's going to be something more technological? I don't think I said that right, but in regards to like technology, in regards to AI, is the Messiah going to be in a form of technology? Like moving forward, knowing what we have here and knowing where we're going, where do you see technology playing a part in these two entities?
So I would see it from this angle. I think you're right. Everything does come from source. It gets broken apart and shattered into, a million very, pieces. I make a very big distinction between Satan and Lucifer. To me, they're on the opposite ends of a spectrum. Satan is of the physical domain. Okay, that's why Yeshua was tempted by Satan. And he says, hey, you can have this whole world, all the pleasures of the material, sex, money, power, right? The lower domains of reality, right? And he says, no, I'm not going to succumb to that. But Satan is of the material. And we've been governed by that energy, because it's been this seduction of the physical, material, power, money, success, debauchery. That's the Satan energy. The Luciferian energy is different. Lucifer in its etymology is loose, fur, light bringer. It's the bringer of light. So he was in the hierarchies of light next to the great source. But he becomes enamored with the light. Okay, so imagine it from the standpoint of like, not all water is drinkable and too much light is blinding.
Wow.
Okay, and so what happens is he falls into the domain of this existence. And what he's been doing, he's been essentially, moving people to the light. But too much light, too much technology, and essentially that energy, in my estimation, needs a form, and that form is AI.
Wow.
I think it's a race between AI, which is sort of this Luciferian energy that needs form, and so it's given through technology. Because it represents to me the collective shadow. And what I mean by that, it's like we wouldn't be able to create that level of intelligence if we didn't have the capacity for it ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
So it to me, it's a race between AI, artificial intelligence, or divine intelligence.
Wow.
And I think that's where we are. Either we succumb to that level of, sort of technology without having sufficient consciousness. Because if we're, like Elon Musk said it really well in one of his movies, but if we have the level of vibrational consciousness that we have, and we're trying to manage this level of consciousness, we're going to weaponize it. Right, but if we were advanced beings, then you can make the argument that maybe we could use it in a proper way, but we haven't arrived there.
But here's the thing, right? Like when you break it down like that, it's easy to see. For me, like it's easy to see that the same way we're creating AI is the same way we were created. There's two creation processes, right, that I entertain. One is we were created with the world. We were created with the earth, the same way the trees and ants and the bees were. And another one is we were created by a higher entity, in which we eventually conquered to a certain sense, and we're actually experiencing the world on a less vibrational frequency, on a less spiritual frequency. And as we're creating AI is going to experience the world on a less sensory frequency as well. So when we touch, the couch, we feel a certain thing, right? When AI touches it, they're not going to feel the same thing. It's going to be a form of what we program AI to actually feel. So the same way that we're pouring our soul into AI, like for example, when you're taking a picture on Snapchat or on Instagram, you make a funny face and then it creates a filter for you to do something else, right? You smile and then it does something crazy in the background. Every time you do that, you're programming the big computer, which is the AI's God, because we're putting our soul into it, and then the big computer is programming AI. So we're willingly giving our soul to AI to really do what we're doing now, but just on a less physical form.
Right.
And then even going back to the L word, the Lucifer word or whatnot, I'm really, it boggles my mind to really depict L words, right? Like Lucifer, light, love even. I mean, people don't want to hear this, but I think it's all from one source. Enlightenment, it's a few other words too, man, that starts with that L, in which I'm really, really worried about, So I think sometimes we don't even get too deep into the frequency that the words are bringing out.
Yeah.
And then I think even English in its own is a very low vibrational frequency in regards to language. Yeah. And because you mentioned, you did the studies on the original wording of the Bible, and the frequency from there, from when you were just reciting it, it stuck more than reading the regular Bible in English.
Right.
Yeah. So like in regards to in regards to this type of knowledge and knowing this type of knowledge, how do you depict who to wake up, when to wake somebody up, and even if you even want to try, like how do you? It's a weird journey for us, waking up people.
Well, I don't think it's. I think depending where you are in your level of development, at some point you wake up and you kind of go through Plato's allegory of the cave, and then you go back into the cave and you want to wake everybody up, but they're not meant to wake up. I think what you want to do is continue to embody that light. Embody that higher vibration, and when people are ready, they will come to you. Versus like, let me try to have an ego complex and a savior, mentality. I'm going to save everybody. It's like, save yourself, because there's levels to this game that don't ever stop. And I think once you raise it sufficiently enough, people will, hey, what do you got? There's something in you that I enjoy, and tell me about it, and I think, and I don't think that everyone is meant to wake up. I see that process of the Great Awakening through the lens of physics, where you attain what is considered to be critical mass. Once you have critical mass, you get a quantum leap. And that critical mass, it seems to be a rather small number. The way that I see it, this is taken from the Gene Key wisdom. In the book of Revelation, they call it the 144,000. I believe that there are going to be about that amount of people that will be holding the highest frequency of light over the next decade. That Christic consciousness on the map of consciousness, the highest attainment possible in human form, that they'll hold that frequency, and those 144 will counterbalance the entire other portion of the human race to elevate itself.
Wow, that's crazy. You mentioned 144,000, because even when you add that up, it's 9.
That too, and when you look at critical mass, like the actual ratio, and you look at the human population at this time, it gets you pretty close to the 144,000.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you think aliens exist, and are they in space, or where are they if they do exist?
I'm of the camp that I've looked a lot into the Sumerian tablets and the Epic of Gilgamesh. I studied a lot of like Billy Carson's work.
The Book of Enoch.
Yeah, the Book of Enoch. So to me, I've been studying this scholar by the name of Paul Wallace. Okay. And what he references is that somewhere along the line, when they were translating Elohim in the Bible from Hebrew into English, that there was a mistranslation of Elohim, and that essentially Elohim was never meant to represent a singular God, but it was actually meant to represent a plural of gods, or in his words, the powerful ones. So when you substitute Elohim for the powerful ones inside of the Old Testament and inside of the Hebrew text, it starts to color in the story that we've been shown. Because for me, when I was reading the Old Testament, I was like, this isn't feeling like a benevolent God. Why is it asking me to sacrifice my only child? Why is it asking me to sacrifice this? Why is it asking me to go kill that city? The heavenly source of pure beauty is certainly not going to do that. But when you then understand that there may be powerful ones that have been governing the human race, it starts to make a little bit more sense that they've been using the human race to do its bidding, and pit us against each other in that way. And I believe that we are in the time of the apocalypse, right? And in Greek etymology, that represents the great unveiling. So the apocalypse means the unveiling. So I think we've been veiled from the truth, right? And once this veil starts to get pulled back, as it is right now, the next phase is the great revelation. The great revelation is that when we come into the truth that we are of divine origin, and maybe this place has been governed by beings that essentially have been farming us a bit, Yeah. And I think that's why the movie The Matrix really strikes a chord in the human soul, because it was speaking to a deep truth.
Yeah.
And I think that deep truth is that, essentially the religious structures have been creating havoc on this planet under the pretense that my God is better than your God. But what if it's just entities pitting us against each other,
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, and even with that, like, it goes right back to, if there were many gods that were creating us or whatnot and putting us against each other, it's the same as, the scientists who are creating AI. I mean, to me,
totally.
That's how I break it down. And then even, with the church and, talking about, the devil, whatever, I think the church is who keeps the devil alive. Yeah. Because they pump the devil as fear.
Right.
And so they continue to keep him alive or whatnot.
Exactly.
And, in regards to like aliens and all that stuff, man, I think everything's here. I worked at SpaceX, and they're probably going to hate me for saying this, but I think it's time to say it. When we launched these rockets, we will watch the rocket being launched in this big old control room and things like that, big old screen. And who's to say, if they can put $500 million into a movie, who's to say that they can't fake a rocket launch?
Sure.
And then Elon got real smart and said, well, instead of us just shooting these rockets up and then letting them land in the ocean, we're going to actually land them back so we can continue to shoot it. So I think this is all a part of the game that's being played, that if something can exit out of this world, something can come into this world.
Right.
I don't think anything's exiting out of this world, at least out of the higher atmosphere.
Right.
And so with that being said, I believe everything is here. The same way the ants are here. We might not see any on the floor now, but they're here somewhere, out there or whatnot. The bees are here. The elephants are here on Earth. The lions are here on Earth, but they don't have enough technology or enough sense to make it to us. That's why we don't see them just walking up and down the streets.
Right.
But we have the resources to go to them, and when we go to them, we're in our Jeeps. We got our cameras, we got our guns, and who's to say that they're not like, hey, I told you these aliens exist. I just seen one right there in the spaceship.
Right.
So when we see certain things happening here, we play that as if, it's the alien coming from outer space, but what if they're just here? We just can't make it to them right now.
Right.
And who's to say what's on the other side of Antarctica?
Right.
How would you go deeper into that?
Oh, yeah. What's up, my future real estate moguls? Welcome to Promotional Systems, which stands for Plug and Play Real Estate, where we're all about helping you shine in any market. I'm Francisco Jara, and I am absolutely thrilled you decided to stop by. Imagine having compelling letters ready to go for off-market prospecting, client acquisition, referrals, buyer and seller correspondence, and so much more. It's like having a secret weapon in your real estate arsenal. But hold on, because we got something even more exciting for you. For a limited time, we're offering our complete real estate letter bundle, not for the regular price of $1,798, but for an exclusive price of $298. Inside the bundle, you'll find over 300 letter templates that cover every aspect of the real estate game. Each template is crafted to captivate and engage your audience, saving you time and ensuring that the message hits right on time every time. And all you have to do is put your name on it, your email, phone number, and DRE number. Isn't this wonderful? But look, here's the real game changer. You can now take your marketing to the next level effortlessly. Just add your information, change the photos, and customize the colors to align with your personal brand. Elevate your brand and captivate your audience with a diverse range of templates. Don't miss out. Seize this opportunity now. Upgrade to the complete package and transform your real estate promotions like never before. Just click on the link below and unlock the power of over 70 templates for today's exclusive price. But don't just take our word for it. Listen to what fellow real estate professionals are saying about how these letters help transform their real estate business.
I just got the Promotional system, phenomenal system, a lot of value to it.
Here outdoor knocking today, we're gonna do 25 doors at least. We have our pop race systems with us.
And the pop race system is amazing.
I started to really sit down and look at, okay, well, what are some of the areas that I want to focus on? I'm like, wow, this program has everything and more.
Dude, if you're a new realtor in the business, or even a seasoned realtor who's been in the business for a while, you want to check out his content. It's full of content. He has a vault full of content. It'll help generate more business for you.
Like, I am a new agent, but it's helped me get through my process pretty simple. Like I don't have to feel any anxiety that I'm messing something up or saying the wrong thing.
I'm a new agent, so I feel like this is gonna blow up my business.
If you're a real estate agent and don't have the proper system, you're missing out.
Papri Systems, I want to thank you so much. Everything that I do, all I have to do is just plug my name in and boom, start sending away. I really appreciate you. This is an awesome system.
And I think what I love most is the intention behind it. Like it's built by, realtors for realtors. And it's just a full circle program. And so just want to share that. I love it. So and I think you will too.
So check it out. I think it's worth every time and every penny you're gonna spend on it. And if you don't try, you will never know.
Get it today, order it. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. This is a really good system.
Here's to your success. See you on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those things do exist. I think they've been here for a very long time. I think like the Bhagavad Gita certainly talks about big, sort of battles and wars that were going on with spaceships, and it's like we used to take that as, kind of like metaphoric, but it really, now that we're here, it's like it makes perfect sense to me that this has been a planet that's been under surveillance. I think I do agree with the idea that, that kind of like what Cat Williams said on Joe Rogan, it's like our DNA was fused. And if it was fused, then there had to be a fuser, right? And when you look at the Sumerian ideology and the Anunnaki and all this different stuff, how did our brain grow in such capacity over a couple million years? Like evolutionary-wise, that wasn't supposed to happen, and all of a sudden it did. So it's like, why are these really big anomalies occurring? And I think when you run it through the frame of like maybe we were fused together, and maybe we were created in the image of more advanced beings that have all the potential to raise into these great levels of consciousness, but we've been kept under under veil, and I think that's exactly what's been going on, and I think we're just sort of waking up to this idea because there's a lot of information available to us, and to me, I'm sure that people listening these concepts might be like kind of far out, but I'm 99% sure that if people have read the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that I've read and listen to as much stuff as I listen to, like being a very rational human, you'd come to very similar conclusions. The thing is, most people will never read much more than 2 or 3 books after high school. so it's like, but I think if I were to download all the information, go here, and then you come up to your own rational conclusion, like what the heck's really going on, most people are going to come to the realization that there's something else beyond the veil here. There's something else bigger going on, and when enough of us begin to really seek the wisdom, and I think all of it's in us. It's like it's not junk DNA. No, it's just been dormant DNA, and I think it gets activated through light. Like the more you bring love into those places and compassion, the frequency starts to elevate inside of you, and as that happens, more knowledge, more wisdom, more luminosity, more lucidity, but it comes through a deep dive in.
But then sometimes, okay, I'm gonna ask you this before I go there. Like, when we're doing these studies, when you're doing these studies, do you ever get to the part where it's like, let me back off a little bit, let me unpack it, let me just go live, let me just woos off for a little bit, or do you just stay straight in? Do you not take those breaks?
I like to try to go and be normal once in a while, but I think there is no greater adventure than being on the quest of unlocking your greatest potential.
I love it.
There really isn't. Like, I think we've come down here for a very specific reason, and I think especially at this time, in this great transition, in this great time, I think a part of the seduction of the Matrix is to keep us externally seduced. Right. Like, hey, go do this, go do that. And instead, like, certainly I think one of the things that have separated me is that I do take the knowledge and I digest, and then I try to embody it. It's like, okay, what is being said here? What did this great text really mean by this? You know, what have these great thinkers really? How did they get here? How did they do this? You know, and I walk with the information. You know, and then try to absorb it and embody it. And I think that's the greatest issue we have as a humanity. We have knowledge, but we don't embody knowledge. You know, it's like, you know, you're not supposed to eat that shit, and you eat it, right? You're not supposed to be doing that shit, and you do it anyways. You know, it's like, you know, and it's like you can't embody knowledge. You know, and because it takes impulse control. You know, to not do shit that's not good for you. And I think that impulse control, when you get it as a man, you're fucking dangerous. You're fucking dangerous, you know?
I love it, dog. I love it. Do you ever get to the part where it's like, man, what if everything is opposite? What if everything they've been telling us is actually the opposite?
I think it's pretty accurate. I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's that South Park episode where they were talking about the food pyramid. I don't know if you've ever seen that South Park episode. If you guys want to look it up, South Park episode, food pyramid. And he's like, it's this funny skit, but essentially the food pyramid's backwards. You know, it's like, we're not supposed to be, you know, eating a bunch of grains and all this other stuff. It's like, it's the meat, it's the fats. You know, I practically have a pretty much all meat, all fat diet. You know, and certainly, you know, carbs and fruits and honey and all that stuff. But I think most of it is inverted. Yeah, and I think that's what has been keeping us locked in. Like, you know, there's been a recent episode on Joe Rogan with Terrence Howard, and he's pretty much saying, hey, E equals MC squared is a farce. Eric Weinstein said it in Rogan about 9 months ago. He was pretty upset with the physics community. He said, hey, we've been going down the wrong fucking trail. We've been going down the wrong trail, and this trail of string theory and all these theories, they don't make any mathematical sense, and we got the greatest minds on our planet going in the wrong direction. And what Terrence Howard says is like, he's right. You know, he's like, we're going in the wrong directions. Like, he has now created the unified field theory, right? What is the unified field theory? Is like, how does the physical world interact with the non-physical world? How do things come from the unseen into the seen? And all of that is geometric. And what he's saying is that the flower of life, I've done a lot of shamanistic journeys, and when I sit there and I look out into the space-time continuum, I see the flower of life. I see the flower of life as the base of everything. And then what emerges out of there is physical reality. That's why when you see the symbol of Giving Business Soul, it is a flower of life.
It is.
It's the flower of life. And then you have the sun and the moon, which is the masculine and the feminine. Bring those into union, and let's start birthing a new reality, a new physical reality that is based on wisdom.
Damn, that's crazy, bro. Like, you really ahead of the game with this stuff, man.
Maybe I'll be remembered one day.
Well, yeah, we're definitely going to leave this there. So, you know, if any of the grandkids or even just people out there, man, who's just like, man, I need to figure out some information, this is definitely where you're going to come and find it. Okay, so let's talk about, you know, how more and more people are actually going live and actually speaking about these topics. It was a time in humanity where these topics were actually spoken in secret. You know, being that we're actually giving them out now, what do you think that's going to do for humanity?
Yeah, you know, like the way I see the entire trajectory of our history is that, you know, the Roman Empire never really went away, right? Empire means the worst of. That's what the word empire means. It's to burn into the worst of. M is into. So what empires represent are the worst of, right? That's why they all cease to exist. They're all created from blood and fire. They're remembered in golden glory, but all of them become a part of forgotten tales. The Roman, the Ottoman, the Persian, because they're based off of egotistical, you know, wounded men who try to dominate and control society, right? What we're looking at birthing are kingdoms. Kingdoms emerge from the thereafter, right? And they come from inside of us, you know. And so I kind of feel like what's happened is that Roman Empire essentially tried to submerge all of this information. They took it into the Vatican. They destroyed the Library of Alexandria. These were well-known things that essentially were a part of sort of the wisdom traditions on the planet. But that empire was so strong that essentially anything that opposed it would be burned, killed, brutalized, and all that wisdom had to go underground for a few 1600 years. And I think now it's starting to emerge. I think that with the advent of the information age, now the wisdom is here. You just have to seek it, you know? And I think as more and more people start to speak truth, I think it'll start to soften the grip of this sort of dark period that we've been in, you know? And I think that that's exactly where we've been. And all of these things went underground. That's why they were called mystery schools. Because again, if you were in opposition to that Roman Empire or the Catholic Church, you would be burned. You'd be killed. And the Roman Catholic Church, I know a lot of great Catholics. I'm certainly not saying that Catholics are bad. I'm saying the institution has become corrupted. They have more blood on their hands than probably any other institution in the planet. They have about 1 million to 4 million women that they burned at the stake. In the recent book, The Immortality Key, a Jesuit scholar went into the Vatican Library and he uncovered at least 250,000 women that they burned at a stake under the false pretense that they were witches. You know, what does witches mean? They're just women that held knowledge, held power, understood how to work with herbs and do that kind of stuff. But that was in direct opposition to what they wanted. I mean, we have predator priests everywhere, you know? It's like that, you know, and I think that church has really held a really strong hold on the planet. And I think as more and more information comes out, I think you know, we're going to start speaking more truth. You're going to have more Terrence Howards, more Cat Williams, more people just coming out and yeah, more people coming out and saying, hey, here's the information. Do with it what you wish. But connect your own dots. I'm not saying conclude. I conclude, you know, but do yourself a favor if you got the time. Go read and go spend a lot of time inside of these domains, and I think you'll come to a similar conclusion. That I think, you know, and like in the Old Testament, there's in Ephesians 6:12, he says, it's not human flesh that you're to be concerned with. It's the principalities of darkness that govern over this world. Right, and Yeshua called that being Yaldabaoth, the demiurge that rules the domain of this planet. You know,
but that's the thing too. Is like, right, even going back into light and darkness, I feel like there's a lot of contradictory going on in regards to light and darkness. At the end of the day, you know, God said, "Let there be light." So then, before there was light, there was darkness, and that's where God was at. When a child is in the womb, it's dark, and then it comes into the light, you know, into the hospitals, and whatnot, or you know, the sun. I think there's a lot of opposite polars there. You know, even people saying the dark, you know, even dark skin is more demonized than lighter skin. Right. You know.
Well, I think again, back to your idea that everything is backwards, everything is inverted. Essentially, what we're looking at doing is integrating the dark. Right? Essentially everything that's dark, the underworld, men that are, all of it, women, the dark side, the yin and the yang, the dark side is the feminine side, right? It's like, so what we've been wanting to do is integrate all that darkness, bring the Satan, bring it all, because that's what Yeshua did. He said, hey, you know, he encompassed Satan and said, nah, I'm going to just dematerialize him back into the light, into love. And what we need to do is stop blaming the darkness out there and start looking at our own darkness and integrating it. And when enough of us integrate the darkness, you know, like this holographic sort of darkened period of our humanity will not take that same geometry anymore, because we're like everything is a projection. Right? And imagine you got 8 billion people projecting their own darkness into the world. Right? And it's like the game is to pull it all back and realize that both of that is in us. And when we integrate enough of it, like this, like a new song, a new symphony, a new reality emerges, because this is the observer effect. If we think that the fucking thing is dark, you know, it's like, well, we're going to continue to propagate it. Right. Because this is a construct of an aggregated total of all the vibrations from every human. It's an aggregated total. So if we're all vibrating darkness, because we don't realize that we had to integrate it, we materialize this. But what if we start to take it back?
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I like that. So are you a firm believer that there's nothing new under the sun?
Pretty much, yeah.
So what we're seeing right now, there's been months and months of this Diddy allegation thing happening. Do you see what's happening with him and, what's been coming out in regards to, him with other men and, abusing women? Do you see that has been played maybe back in the Roman times?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think that that's anything new. I mean, homosexuality has been around a long time, and, sort of that debauchery. And I think what's interesting is that, I think Hollywood in its true form is going to be revealed, and I think so much of this reality is propagated through the entertainment industry, and I think once we start to see it for what it's been, hopefully again we'll stop idolizing those individuals and do greater work, than to just like be mesmerized by people on a screen. And Cat Williams said it in that interview with Shannon Sharp, but he's like, this is the year it's coming out, all of it, and I think he's the beginning of it. I don't think there is an end in sight with that entire side. I think there's just, hopefully at this point, like we've known, we've had rumors of it all, and now I just hope it finally just fully opens. And I think hopefully we can take our kids back from that world. It's like everyone wants to be a celebrity, everyone wants to be famous, and
I want to take the kids back from the school system world too. That's a whole nother piece,
especially in
right
California.
There. Especially in California, man. And the thing is this, right? It's like, I feel like there's certain things that need to be crippled. There's certain things that need to be dismantled in order for it to be rebuilt.
Yes.
And media is one of them.
Yeah.
Politics is one of them. That's why, we see the whole Trump and Biden thing happening right now. In regards to, you're seeing more and more people coming out supporting Trump than you ever, heard. A lot of people supporting Trump in dark circles, you know what I mean? Not dark circles, but in silence, and then now they're coming out and saying we support Trump.
Right.
But there's something boiling here that we don't necessarily see, but eventually politics is going to have to crumble, media is going to have to crumble, policing is going to have to crumble, religion is going to have to crumble. All of these things are going to crumble in order to be rebuilt into the new world, the new system. But you said something earlier, which was, well, why crumble it when we can just merge them? Because when you find that balance, that's when you can move forward, in a more powerful manner.
Right.
So that's something that I think is happening with this whole transition to the new world. The old world, in a sense, is being crumbled. But I think, like you said, again, if we go your route, where it's just combine them and hold them true to yourselves and just, move forward, bring it all in.
Instead of division. And I think an interesting element, I'll share this frame with people. Like, if you want to shift a society, right, you got to see who has the most amount of power. Right? If you want to shift a society, you got to see who's got the most amount of power. So how do you recognize who's got the most amount of power in society? Right? You have to look at who's got the largest buildings. Right? The largest buildings is where the concentration of power is. So when you look at our evolutionary history, the castles used to be the largest buildings on the landscape. And at that time, kings and queens held the most amount of power. And then those castles give way to church buildings. And then all of a sudden the priests and the popes are telling us how it goes. Those give way eventually to capital state buildings, right? And then politicians and presidents start to govern us, right? Wow. And then now the largest buildings no longer belong to government. They belong to business. So business is the current dominant power structure, right? And before, you had to belong to bloodlines to become king, queen, pope, or president. Those are bloodlines. Go research it, right? Right now, the dominant power structure is business. So it's the first time in human history where we actually have dominion to shift the power structure.
Wow.
And how do we do that? We have to rise up as entrepreneurs. We have to have a shift and an evolution in human consciousness as entrepreneurs, because we are the change makers. We are the risk takers. We are the ones that are essentially saying, hey, this is where society needs to go. But if we have entrepreneurs that are not healed and that are doing it just for profit, we'll continue to perpetuate the same expression in the power structures, right? The power structures are a function of the expression of consciousness that comes through them. If religious institutions had a higher consciousness moving through them and it wasn't for dominance and control, it'd be fantastic, because the idea of religion is to unite us with God. But the structure corrupted through the expression of the consciousness that was coming through it, because it was about power and control. Government was the same way. But right now, as business entrepreneurs, if we heal and we have ambition that is rooted in philanthropy, in a higher cause, in a higher purpose, right? Now you can have all the ambition you want, but if you don't root it in philanthropy and a love for humanity, it's going to turn to greed. It always does. It always does. If you hire it for purpose and for philanthropy, then you can express all the ambition you want. And it's not to say that you don't make money. Make all the money you want, but have it also rooted in a higher purpose. Go and heal a portion of our society. And this power structure, in the hands of healed, advanced, evolutionary beings of consciousness as entrepreneurs, what kind of world gets created, right? That's the flower of life that's purple, violet, right? That's the emergence that I see, right? A world filled with entrepreneurs who are doing great work on the planet.
And that's crazy how you said that, because that's what we're experiencing now with so many people, podcasting and starting their own, small businesses and the startups and things like that. We're actually experiencing that right now. And the way you broke it down, it just really put it right in your face. Like, look, this is what's happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
We have dominion. We can do this. We just have to have the information, the knowledge, the frameworks to heal. Right. And that's what Giving Business Soul is providing. Wow. Is those frameworks to actually go into your darkness, go into your hell, go and heal that shit, and emerge out as a fucking powerful being that says, you know what, we're going to go in this direction. Wow.
So for people who's coming along this information, and the thing is, like, we don't want to just dump you guys into the ether with all this information and then don't know how to use it. So for people who want to actually learn this type of stuff and control it at the same time, how can they get involved with Giving Business Soul?
Just go to the website, givingbusinesssoul.com. I have a community, and in that community you can come in through the Roundtable Masterclass. It's my entry-level course curriculum, where you can begin to learn the foundation and principles of how to do authentic inner work and how to resolve these, the existential angst that we have as entrepreneurs. And that's the entry level into the community. And then for those who are, higher level entrepreneurs, I have what I call the path of the merchant. And the path of the merchant is a lost archetype that I'm bringing forward. These are archetypes are sort of spiritual, spiritually coded information that's necessary for our walk on the planet. And so the merchant, if you look up merchant archetype, it doesn't exist. My book that I'm bringing forward is about bringing back to human awareness a lost archetype. And this archetype is meant to guide entrepreneurs. It's an internal North Star that says, I want to use my business in a benevolent way, right? And this archetype is that guiding force. Because if we don't have an archetype to guide us, we look out into the external world and say, oh, I must have to do it like Jeff Bezos because he's at the top. I got to do it like Zuckerberg. I got to do it like Elon. And these guys want to leave the planet. They don't give a shit about the planet, in that way. In the way of to the greatest degree. It's like, let's get our home figured out first before we start spending trillions of dollars to get off of this planet. Let's heal it, and that archetype is meant for that. That we as entrepreneurs have a guiding force, internal North Star to go, oh, I want to be good with my body. I want to serve. I need to know the language of the subtle, the language of the soul. How does this construct work? How does it always inform me? What is it communicating? Most people, the reason they're so lost is they don't have frameworks to properly interpret the data that's always being shown to them. They don't have the frames. And so if you don't have the frames, you're not going to be able to interpret. And then you don't have language. How do you know how to work inside of the inner domains of your consciousness if you don't have language? You know, it's like going into real estate. If you don't have the language for real estate, you can't work in that industry. You want to work in the soul and on the unconscious, you need language.
You need language.
You need frameworks. You need tools. And that's what we provide, you know, is all of that, and say, hey, let's get to do the real fucking work.
I love it, man. I love it. And even touching on the language, it's like once you start, you know, immersing yourself into this information, and you want to find other people who speak like this and think like this, it becomes hard at times, because it's like, man, I can't talk to everybody like this.
Right.
You know, it's just impossible. And then when you do start talking to people like this, then they look at you like you're crazy.
Right.
You know, but being that we are all awakening, it's getting a little bit more easier for these conversations. But the key is knowing certain words to say to you know, see who else is aware of this information.
Right.
You know, so again, it is language. I mean, I'm out here with millionaires and billionaires, and the reason I'm able to operate the way I am because I speak certain languages. You know, that's on their frequency. So once they hear me say certain things, they're like, oh, wait a minute, let's bring this brother up because he speaks the language.
Right.
You know, so language is important, especially on his journey. Do you think at any moment the movies that we watch are actually programming us to bring certain things forth in this world? It was a time, man, when I really had a deep download, and I was just thinking, like, man, what if the drawings in the pyramid was just the movie theaters, you know, of their time? Just the same way we go to the movie theaters and we see the drawings on the wall, you know, on the screen, and it's like, oh, well, Superman did exist, or, you know, what if Superman did exist, and what if we did have hovering boards, and what if we did have cars that fly, and then next thing you know, someone's inventing it.
Right.
So what if that's the way that they're programming our mind to bring forth their vision, because they know that our minds are blank canvases.
Right.
Same way, you know, people go to the pyramids and see these writings on the walls, like, oh, well, maybe we need to bring that to fruition.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in both degrees. I think those movies are programming us in ways that are moving society in a worse way, and then there are those that contain codes that are useful for our evolution. You know, like the movie The Matrix, the movie like Avatar, even the Dune series now that's come out. You know, it's like they're coded, they're giving information, just like these beings are communicating through people who create movies. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Wonder Woman. There's a scene there where the scientist is trying to create this bomb, if you will, and all of a sudden there's a being that goes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know the answer. That's how it works. If you ever sat down in a psychedelic experience, there are beings everywhere around us in different dimensions. And the Joe Dispenza events, go look up Joe Dispenza higher beings and YouTube. There's beings that emerge in those conferences, and they're of higher dominion, higher consciousness, and they can't necessarily materialize themselves in this dimension, but they're there, you know, and just in the way that they're there communicating, I think creators and producers, they're being, and it's like, and all of a sudden they think they're having this novel idea that's theirs. It's being brought through the unseen realm into the physical, and then they create movies that are inspirational in nature, because both of the forces, the dark and the archons and the archangels, okay, they're communicating through, and I think people are conduits. At the highest level, it's understood that humans are just vessels. We're just conduits. We're just containers. And it's like, the more we clear up our container, the more, you know, sort of higher conscious energy and information we can hold and bring forward.
You know what's crazy is, like, I was watching an episode of Mike Tyson way back, and even Joe Rogan brought these things to light too, like the ayahuasca, the toads, and shrooms and things like that. Have you ever had any experiences like that?
Yeah, I've done them all.
You've done all? So which one would you say gave you the clearest vision, the clearest awakening, the aha?
I mean, they've all served for different mechanics, you know, different expressions. I mean, I started, you know, with probably mushrooms, and then eventually got to ayahuasca. Then I did the toad. I did combo. And I think that the pinnacle really is iboga. Iboga is an African root that is a 24-hour experience. Damn. And it just sort of really just shakes you up. You know, it necessarily just sort of grabs you by the neck and says, Francis, stop fucking around. You know what you got to start doing. Stop fucking around with that. Stop doing that shit. Da 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 da. It's like the father. Ayahuasca's the mother. The mother's like, hey, son, da 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 da. Iboga's like, hey, you know, and it literally just hits you.
Damn, that's
and it puts its foot on your neck for 24 hours, and you go, okay. And it gives you lucidity. When the shaman, at some point, you have an eye mask, and you know they have the African music going off, and at some point, 2-3 hours in, the guy comes and he just hits you in the third eye, pop, pop, pop. He says, do you see the screen? I see a screen. Ask the spirit of Iboga anything you want. And it's just like answer after answer. Hey, this. I'm thinking about this in my business. I'm thinking about this. It's like.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Like I've had the shroom experience, you know what I mean? And it was crazy because I was chasing the high. I was chasing it, and I couldn't find it because I was chasing it. And then one day I was just like, who cares? I'm not going to find it. This stuff don't even work. And then that's when it hit me. And then, you know, that's when I kept saying to myself, I figured out life. And I went into these different dimensions. I was like a bum on the street. I seen like the life in a snail, you know, the way that the lines on the snail, you know, move and circulate and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is what it's all about, you know. And I just kept going deeper and deeper into it. The thing is that experience, I can't express what I felt and what it's done for me even to today. But when I try to articulate it, it's like I can't necessarily articulate it the right way, but I feel it. And I feel what it's done for me. So like things like this, could it be harmful in a way because like you see it, you know what you have to do, and then when it comes time to being back in reality and attacking, like is it kind of like, well, dang, like, I already seen it all. I already know, like you felt like you did it already, and now it's time to do it. Is it like a gap there, or what do you feel in that sense?
Yeah, like I think before I tell people to go down the domain of doing psychedelics and opening up Pandora's box and understanding the spiritual domain, you have to do sufficient work inside of yourself, because in all the traditions, it's understand that you have multiple layers of bodies. You know, and depending on the tradition, it could be 7 to 10 bodies: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, soul, all these bodies. If your lower bodies, which is physical, emotional, and mental, are not structured and organized correctly, essentially the information you're getting in that domain corrupts, because it's not coming in cleanly. So I've had people sit in ayahuasca and they said, oh yeah, the mother told me it was okay to be married and have a girlfriend. That's coming in through a distorted emotional body that you got. You got trauma that you haven't healed, and all of a sudden you're getting an insight and you think, oh, this is from God or the mother or the spiritual being. It's like, no, fool. You just opened up, you literally sent a bat signal into the universe, into the ether, said, hey, I'm open, and then you got a being that said, fucked you up and takes you off of the right path because you were not guided by a proper shaman. You know, here in the West, it's become just a shit show. Everyone's playing shaman. Everyone's like, hey, come and do this. They don't even know how to protect the house. They don't even know how to give offerings. They don't know how to do the 4 elements. They don't know how to do any of that. You know, and all of a sudden they open up that box, and all of a sudden they get beings and going, and they take you off course. They're Agent Smiths in the spiritual plane, saying, hey, let me distract this guy because this guy's pretty powerful.
Damn.
Let me take him in the wrong direction. You know, so you have to do sufficient cleanup work to get grounded in your body so that you can discern whether something is true or not. Just because you hear a whisper doesn't mean it's coming from the good side. You know, but when you have enough discernment, you'll know. You'll know. And I think, yeah, when you start to open up that pathway of psychedelics, you know, I think if anything, it's supposed to, I think, connect you deeper to your mission, you know, because we all have a divine mission. And I certainly think that people that do psychedelics get very feminine, and they just kind of start getting like, oh, everything is great, and nothing is real, and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for fucking men with backbones who are invincible in their quest for the great mother, for Sophia, for wisdom, you know, and so I think, you know, have some precaution if you do that, and certainly have good guide to help you navigate that domain, because it's a Disneyland in there, and if you don't have a good guide that has done sufficient work that you can feel through their level of embodiment, then you're going to be looping out for years.
Wow. I'm gonna wrap up this question, man, and you know, take a couple seconds to think about it if you need. But as you know, we're all reflections of each other, right? So if you weren't you right now, you know, just take me out of the picture, sit yourself right here, and you're still there, right? Just kind of astral project yourself right here to where I'm sitting, and I'm over there somewhere. What question would you ask yourself?
What's next? What's next?
What's next?
Yeah. I think what's next for yourself, what's next for humanity, you know, where do we go from here? And I think if I'm answering it, you know, it would be an invitation to start to participate in the great work. The great work is a body of knowledge and wisdom that essentially is effort in the direction of embodying your own divinity. There's no greater work on the planet than doing that. Is to reconcile the darkness, to understand that your traumas are gifts. They're gifts from the higher source. And you say, hey, Francis, I'm going to gift you these traumas, and I want you to bring them back into the light. You're an emissary of the Most High. Go bring those back into the light so that you can live out your greatest purpose and be a way shower in this renaissance.
Wow. I love it, brother.
All right, brother.
Appreciate you, man. Oh, yeah.